joining us to learn about the practical marketing strategies for small businesses. This webinar is presented by the Queen's Chamber of Commerce and a proud new Queen's Chamber member, the New American Marketing. My name is Jacqueline Donado, a Strategic Program Manager of the Queen's Chamber. And as we explore the opportunities available in the marketing industry, I welcome all of you this afternoon. This webinar is broadcast on Facebook Live and will be uploaded in our YouTube channel for your convenience. Feel free to share this link with your network later on. I invite you to please ask any questions you may have in the chat or at the Q&A function, and we will answer questions at the end of the program. And at this moment, I want to turn on to Chris Egerly. Welcome, Chris.
Jacqueline, thank you so much for having us. And before we start, I just wanted to thank the Queen's Chamber, Jacqueline, your team, Brandon, Tom, and everyone at the Queen's Chamber. It's a great organization, and it's a privilege for us to be able to host a webinar today with you. So thank you. So with that, today's topic is going to be digital marketing strategies, specifically for the multicultural markets, and why right now, at the end of 2020, it's more important than ever. So our company is called New America Marketing. We're a marketing consulting firm, and I'd like to introduce the president of the firm, Vince Vidiello.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to the Chamber, and thank you for everyone who's joined here today. Really do appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Hopefully everyone is safe. I know all of us being New Yorkers, we're about to go through this additional surge, so please be safe. I was the Chief Marketing Officer for 2 international companies, and I'd like to share with you some thoughts about how to grow your business in 2021. The next couple of weeks going into Christmas seems like kind of a dead or more quiet time for strategy businesses, but to me, it's a great time to be able to start preparing to expand your business in 2021. Before we start, I'd like to just tell a very quick story. I'd like for all of you to imagine, if you're not Chinese as an example, that all of you got transferred or moved to China, and you needed to buy some type of consumer product, such as an iPhone, a car, a big screen television, insurance, what have you. And the first thing that you did is you Googled in China places that you could buy this consumer product. But what you found right away is that you can't Google in China. But somehow, some way you made yourself onto a website, and you found that the website was all in Chinese. And then you found that their sales collateral, their pamphlets were in Chinese, and you don't read Chinese. And then you call their 800 number and they only spoke Chinese. And then their sales personnel were all Chinese. Well, a lot of consumers, specifically in the multicultural markets that are immigrants, that are natives of Queens and New York City, really have that feeling every single day, that they want to engage with a company or an operation so that they feel comfortable with. And a lot of times companies are not reaching out to the multicultural markets. So Rashmi, if you'd go to the next slide, please. Tom Greck, who's our leader and president and chief executive officer of the Queen's Chamber of Commerce, his quote is, "Queens is not only the most diverse borough of New York City, but also the most diverse place in the United States." And he said, gaining more customers can help explode your business. Digital and social media is a sure shot way to grow your customer base. The Chamber has partnered with us to offer digital and social media and marketing strategy to our members. If you'd go to the next slide. So just some demographics of Queens, and many of you may know this breakdown, but 75% of Queens is not white. Flushing has the largest Chinese population outside of China. There are Hispanic, South Asian, and Guyanese communities in Ridgewood, Elmhurst, Ozone Park, Richmond Hill, and Jackson Heights. Black American, Jamaican, and Caribbean communities are in Jamaica. Russian, Greek, Egyptian, Eastern European communities in Astoria, Maspeth, and Ridgewood. And Corona, Little Italy of Queens, is now predominantly Latino. and a large Filipino American community in Woodside. So in Queens, 25% is white, 28% Hispanic, 27% Asian, and 20% Black. And many of these folks, the story that I told about China, feel engage with companies because companies assuming that all the customers buy in the same way and like to be communicated in the same way, which is not true. Next, please, Rashmi. New American Marketing, we're a New York-based firm. We consult many large companies and small companies in developing marketing solutions. We do three basic things. The first is we help you with digital and social media marketing. The second, we develop a strategy, a broad strategy. So if you plan to be in your business for the next 3 to 5 years, we help you with your strategy of building out how to gain more customers and more revenue. And last, we provide training for your sales support and for your internal folks. And we also teach you how to build a diverse team because diversity of thought nowadays is very, very important. Next. This is our team. Vince is me to the left. My Chief Operating Officer is Chris Akerley, who introduced me. Rashmi Datta is our integrated marketing specialist. She has 2 master's degrees from NYU. And Mei Ling Zhao is our assistant manager for New American Marketing. These folks speak multiple languages, and they are really bright and really help develop the strategies and digital marketing. Next. So I'd like to turn it over to Rashmi to talk specifically about one of the verticals that we do, and then Chris Akerley will talk about the second and the third. Rashmi?
Thank you so much, Vince. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this webinar today. I want to take a few minutes to talk about what you can do in terms of your digital and social media presence that will help make the difference and take your business to the next level. We work to Vince's point, we work with a lot of large firms that sometimes do not have any digital or social presence, and they come to us with, for a strategy as to how to expand into new markets and what to do with their brand. So what I recommend is to use an integrated marketing approach. What that essentially means is to identify what channels your audience is on and then going after these people on those specific channels. The idea, again, is to approach them through multiple avenues. And on your screen, you will see that there are a few avenues that we've listed out that my team and I can help you develop your marketing strategy in. So number one is branding. Branding essentially is an ongoing exercise. It means to continuously engage with your end audience or your consumer to make sure that they know your products and services better. It's a long-term exercise. You can't just send out one email or a flyer and expect it to work. It has to be continuous, like I said. Second is in-language communication. What that essentially means is that you need to know what percentage of your audience speaks what language and what is the best language to communicate your message to them in, and then to use that language to deliver your message and your call to action. That works best to Vince's point because a lot of people today feel disengaged. Multicultural people feel disengaged because they do not feel that companies understand or value the culture that they belong to. So in-language communication is critical. Third, use the web and social media platforms that you have access to. Your website is your primary asset. You need to know at all times who's visiting your website, what actions are they taking on your website, what information are they looking for. Similarly, what you need to do then is to take this insight that you develop of users on your website, utilize this information on your social media platforms to customize your messaging. Now, of course, in-language messaging and call to action based messaging to your target audience on different social media platforms. You also need to understand what their motivations are and why they are on the platforms that they're on. And then devise your strategy in terms of what action would you like them to take? What do you want them to do? Buy your products and services, gain access to training, knowledge, etc. So these are some things to think about. A lot of marketers will tell you that email probably doesn't work as best as it did about 5 years ago, but I disagree with that. I think email marketing is a very powerful tool to get responses. So if you want your audience to talk to you, email is the way to go. Video marketing, especially considering the pandemic and the times that we are in and what we're seeing around us, I have seen a lot of large organizations use video marketing more and more to communicate their message. One thing to remember is that, again, this is not a one-time exercise. So you need to develop a repository of videos that you could use consistently. And another thing that you need to know and you need to practice in general is that you need to develop content or messaging that can be used over and over again. In other words, develop evergreen content that you can repeat in a couple of months. So that takes a lot of load off of your team in terms of content development and scheduling. Similarly, what you also need to do across all of these platforms is to go back every now and then and see if the messaging that you're putting out and the calendar that you're developing, does that make sense? Is it relevant considering the current landscape? And optimize your content consistently. Another tool that we've seen work for most of our clients is webinars. And we're on one right now, right? Webinars seem to work really well. And if you do have spare marketing dollars, and if you do want to expand into new markets and access new leads, what you could also look at doing is some paid advertising. I know that social media, especially social media marketing, depending on what your business is, I know Facebook marketing and Instagram marketing are doing really well. If you might consider YouTube also does really well in terms of generating new leads. If you're a B2B business, I know for a fact that LinkedIn should be the platform for you. But again, depending on the business that you're in, you could consider paid advertising, and it tends to work. Last but not the least, community events. So like I said, our approach, NAM's approach is an integrated approach, which means that we recommend a mix of both online and offline channels. So community events are an excellent offline channel. They are an excellent avenue for networking and face-to-face communication. But of course, considering the current times, community events are rare. But that's where the Queen's Chamber of Commerce comes into play. They have been doing an amazing job with virtual events and putting out resources to their members. So I would, of course, request that you avail of these services that they're putting out. But again, community events should not be ignored because they are a great source of networking and immense value. Moving on.
Great. Rashmi, if I could just make a point to our listeners and our people that have joined. Years ago, it was only big businesses that could afford to advertise. So it would be television, print, and radio. And today, almost every small business can do almost the same exact thing that large businesses do through social media at literally a fraction of the cost. It's really interesting how DoorDash today became a public company. And their valuation, they raised over $3.4 billion. And kind of think about what DoorDash was a year ago or 2 years ago. It was almost non-existent. And here's a company that literally exploded, and not just exploded in one borough or in one state, but literally nationally. So social media allows you to expand your business dramatically and expand it throughout outside the borders of Queens and New York, and nationally and internationally. And to me, the greatest invention, the least expensive way to broaden the business. Chris?
Thanks, Vince. So on the previous slide, Rashmi went through a few different things as far as tactics go for digital marketing. This slide is about something that our company has been offering for the past year that we call the Diversity CMO, which is Diversity Chief Marketing Officer. This speaks more to the strategy. So before you get started on any tactical initiatives, you first have to set a strategy for your business. Now, Typically, this is right around planning time for 2021. So a lot of you guys are probably setting your strategies right now as we speak. It would be a mistake if you ignored the multicultural markets and it wasn't a big part of your strategy, particularly the folks that have a business right here in Queens and the greater New York area. So with the diversity CMO, we work on a 3-step process. The first thing is we need to know about your company. We need to dig in and find out what the culture is, who your customers are, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, basically everything we can. So we start with a fact find. After the fact find's done, we present a report, and a report will have recommendations. So on the previous slide, Rashmi showed a few tactical examples. Our report will include those tactical examples, the ones that are most relevant for your business as a result of our fact find. Once we have that all lined up, we work with your team and our team to develop the assets that you guys need to execute your strategy. Once all those assets are developed, we train your team on how to use the assets and how to leverage them properly and really have an effective strategy. Next, Rashmi. So this slide, we do 3 things. So Rashmi talked about the marketing tactics. I spoke a little bit about the strategy. The third thing that we do is we do training. So like Vince said, maybe 5 years ago, only the big firms could train their employees. It was too expensive. It was too much of an undertaking. And it didn't seem like it was really something that affected the bottom line. But now that it's 2020, really the business landscape has changed. Diversity is no longer a check the box issue. It's really mandatory if you want to have a healthy business moving forward. I'm not here to scare anyone, but all you have to do is Google employee litigation, and you'll find out exactly what happens when your employees aren't trained. Some of the topics that we've been training recently on that are really popular are microaggressions, managing gender balance, and cultural competency. You want to make sure that your employees are saying the right things to each other and also your customers.
Great. Next, please. So we're coming to the last couple of slides. So why the diverse markets? And I think many folks on the call today, on the webinar, might be diverse. And you might be thinking, well, I already have a diverse customer base. But what if you could own the Chinese market in New York? What if your business was the place, whether it was a restaurant, whether it was a store, what if you had a strategy that every Chinese person in Queens, or every Hispanic person, or every South Asian person thought of your business as the place to go to? And that's what we do that's what we do for our customers. We develop a strategy for you to say, there's 1 or 2 really specific markets that we want to penetrate. And we want to penetrate it not just in Queens, but we may also want to penetrate it for South Florida. We want to get our message out also to California or to Staten Island. That's what we do. So why is it more important now than ever? 3 out of every 10 Americans are diverse, except in New York, it's 70%. And in Queens, it's 75%. In the 10 largest cities in the United States, minorities are now the majority. So Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Dallas, Miami, New York, Philadelphia, all majority diverse. Diverse audiences easily disengage from companies that don't get their culture. They just, hey, we'd rather go to a company that I feel comfortable with. I remember years ago, a number of my Chinese friends who have been in the country for 35 years, I picked them up at the airport in Dallas. And as soon as they got in my car, the 4 gentlemen began to speak Cantonese with each other. Now, maybe they didn't want me to know what they were talking about, but they feel more comfortable, and they've been in our country for 35 years. Next thing, keeping diverse consumers engaged. Rashmi talked about social media. It's not just one email. It's a surround sound. How do you get your customers to understand what your message is? And what's your brand? Do you talk about your brand? Do you have the color scheme of your brand? Does your website talk to it? And then expand online and offline network and developing new channels for developing sales leads. How many people went to your website? How many people went to your webinar? we host webinars like this all the time for our customers, and it turns into leads for folks. So now more than ever, diversity is a hot topic. It's a hot topic because of what Chris talked about is, protecting and building a diverse team, but also having a strategy, but also connecting with them on a daily basis through social media. Next. So this is our close, and then we'll open it up for questions, Jackie. So we do a 15-minute consultation, free consultation. And if you'd like to book it, Chris at newamericamarketing.com. And you'll see his contact information, 631-327-1383. We work very closely with firms. We love to work with firms that kind of get the idea of diversity. And what's great about our firms here in New York and in Queens, you don't have to convince them of the diverse opportunity. You all know about it. The question is, how do you get started? How do I really explode that market? How do I explode outside of Queens, outside of New York, and across the country? So we also have a YouTube channel. We do videos. We do a video per week. We do videos for our customers also. And I think we can really, really help your business expand. So I want to thank all of you for the opportunity, especially the Queens Chamber, of giving us the opportunity to share some information about diversity and how to penetrate the markets. But also want to thank all of the people that were on the webinar. So Jackie, if you'd like to open up for questions, if there are questions.
Okay, so I'll actually be the ones posing the questions, and we've got a few from Facebook and on Zoom actually. So the first one we wanted to have answered is a diverse workforce essential to properly adopting diverse marketing?
I think, Mohammed, to answer that question, earlier this week or late last week, the NASDAQ announced that any companies that are listed on the NASDAQ within the next couple of years must have a woman on their board and a diverse person on the board. Now, you could say, well, they're doing it for political reasons, but the real reasons is they want to make sure on the board that there's diversity of thought and that there's also transparency for the consumers. And so if you're an investor in any one of those companies, NASDAQ is saying, we want to have the best people on the board, and we don't just want white customers. We want diverse customers. So in a long way of answering your question, is it necessary? In the long term, it's a really great thing to have because it gives the business a different perspective of what the customer is. If the entire team is white, or the entire team is black, or the entire team is Asian, you don't get the diversity of what the multiple types of customers are there. So I think it's a necessary part of building a long-term strategy.
Vince, to add to your point, there's research evidence, empirical evidence available to the fact that diverse teams not only perform better financially in terms of generating revenue, they also help capture newer markets for their companies. Also, women-led organizations have been known to be able to double their revenue more easily than other conventional firms. So, it's true both ways. We see practical evidence of this happening. There's also empirical research available that will substantiate these facts.
Thank you, Rashmi.
And if I could just jump in with one more thing, maybe specifically you may have been asking for your sales force. For example, do you need a Hispanic sales team to sell to Hispanic folks? The answer to that is no, but it sure does help. And recruiting is part of a major part, frankly, of what we do in our strategy. So it's something you really need to be aware of when you're recruiting, if that's something that's important to you.
Yeah, I would like to add that at the Queens Chamber of Commerce, we run different programs. One of the programs is Chamber on the Go. And Chamber on the Go is sponsored by the City of New York. And the purpose is to outreach different communities in Queens, the most diverse borough or place on the planet. And we go door to door talking to people. In our outreach team, we can manage up to 9 different languages. And we something that we found is that there are companies that they want to outreach a different market, but they are not ready for the feedback. When a person, they put an advertisement on the ethnic media, but they don't have a person on the staff that they can handle these inquiries. And I think that is an issue that a lot of businesses are facing at this moment.
Yeah, good point. Good point. If I could also add to that question, you know, there are various holidays, and I ask you to think about if you were in China and the CEO of that company or that small business sent you an email the day before Thanksgiving and said Happy Thanksgiving while you're in China, you'd say, boy, that guy really gets it, because they don't celebrate Thanksgiving in China. And so if you think about the holidays that we have in the various ethnic groups, we have Lunar New Year, Diwali, Yom Kippur, and reaching out just on the holiday basis on your website or on your social media, that you say to my customers, you know, Happy Diwali or Happy Lunar New Year, it makes such a difference. It's such a small thing, and it literally costs you nothing to do that. So just reaching out and make people say, wow, that person gets it. That person's white, and he understood that it was Lunar New Year or Diwali or Yom Kippur. He wasn't Jewish, but he understood that it was. It's really a simple and pretty inexpensive way, one of the tactics.
Right, thank you. So the next question we have from the audience, from Yaswin De Jesus. She asks, how can everything I've learned today be applied to a sole proprietorship business, like where she is the only person there? And she mentions that she owns her own cosmetic line, so it's probably to be relative to that industry.
So obviously, not everything we talk about is for big businesses or even small businesses, but also sole proprietorship. So the questions that we would have if we did a fact find is, what does her website look like? Who's our target audience? What does her social media program look like? Does she do anything in language? What's the age group that she's working with? So there's a series of questions that, what's great about what her business is she could do the same exact thing that Macy's does as a sole proprietor, and at a cost where it would be relatively small, even if you're a tiny business.
Yep, and just to piggyback on that a little bit, where when Macy's wants to market their brand and their product, they might, you know, spend $500,000 on a television ad. This slide talks a lot about the things that you can do as a sole proprietor or a small business owner or a mom and pop shop for either cheap or free. So Facebook doesn't charge money, Instagram doesn't charge money, LinkedIn doesn't charge money. You can get a Gmail account for free and run email campaigns. There are any number of things you can do as a small business owner to market yourself, your brand, your products, and get new customers. So I would encourage you, Yasmin, to shoot me an email or give us a call, and we'd be happy to chat with you about that.
I would give out one cool tip here that I think would come in handy, and you could do this. Reaching out to influencers will really do you a lot of good on both Facebook and Instagram. You could also reach out to bloggers. A lot of low-key bloggers and influencers do not charge for activity. They are only looking for cross-promotional opportunities. So that's something that you could leverage.
Thank you, Rashmi.
Thank you, guys. So our next question is from the Facebook Live asking, there are so many different communities in Queens. How can you possibly reach all of them?
Great. It's a great question. And a lot of our customers ask that question. But typically what we suggest is, instead of what we call boiling the ocean and saying, I want all of the 80 or 90 ethnic groups that we spoke about earlier, is to focus on one or two of the major groups. And so as we looked at the demographics of your area specifically, obviously the Hispanic and the Asian group is the predominant ones. And in the Asian group, it's the Chinese group. So if we were working with a firm, we would say, let's identify one or two at most, and let's develop a strategy for those two particular ethnic groups. And after a year and success, that you could then go to the next best ethnic group as a target.
And that would be something that we would determined during our fact find, right? Because that might also be determined on what product you're selling or what service you're selling. So Yasmin has a cosmetics line. I don't know if her cosmetics line covers all the spectrums of skin tone. It might only cover one area of skin tone. So it makes it pretty easy to select a market if your product only speaks to a certain portion of the market.
And the crux of this presentation, again, is to know who your audience is. And that's where we come in. That's where we will help you assess who you should be talking to. Where does your maximum revenue come from? And what languages do these people communicate in?
Yeah. So if your business is thinking of, you need a marketing strategy and you need to hire a person or two people for your marketing department, we do it in a very less expensive way because you don't pay us benefits, you don't pay us overhead, you don't pay us office space. And so if your business is expanding to the next level where, hey, we need professional marketing, that's where we may come in to be able to help you.
Okay, so the next question is, how can you avoid forgetting your traditional marketing tactics when attempting to diversify your marketing base?
Rashmi, you want to take that?
So there's no way you could forget your traditional marketing tactics, because that is the basis of everything you do. Whether it's whatever business you're in, whatever community you go after, you're only improvising your tactics on the basis of what works with that community. You're not really changing anything. You're just altering stuff to make sure that optimizing stuff and your stuff in the sense your tactics and your strategy to make sure that you address the needs of any one or two communities in the best way possible.
Yeah, but Rashmi, I would add to that and say we together with you would assess your marketing strategies and maybe help you assess whether they're working or maybe they're not working. So maybe you don't want your traditional marketing strategies. Maybe you want different marketing strategies. So you could keep them if they're working and double down on them, or you could say, hey, we've tried this and it hasn't worked. And then we could change that. Next.
Well, from the way it looks, that seems to be all the questions.
No, I have a question here.
Oh, well, Jackie has her own.
What are the new marketing strategies in the times of the COVID-19, especially that there are other institutions that they need more services, online services? In your case, what is your experience?
Chris or Rashmi?
I can take that. So one thing that you need to do more than anything else is to over communicate with your end users. That'll keep them engaged, number one, and it'll keep you on your toes in terms of improvising and adapting to this new normal. In terms of channels and tactics that I've seen that have worked for other clients, number one and most importantly is video. You need to be able to communicate with your end users using video marketing. It's more engaging. They tend to respond better to videos. Second is email. When I say over communicating, make sure that you're emailing them, and it doesn't have to be promotional emails. It could be update emails. It could be newsletters. It could be getting their feedback. It's just that touching them more and more is and regularly is more important now than it has ever been.
I'll say I agree with that, first of all, and I would say that also applies to your internal team. So I know there's a couple folks who are sole proprietors on the line. For those of you who are small business owners and have employees or staff, now is definitely a time that it is very important to be over communicating with your people and your team. It's very easy to become disengaged. A lot of people are working from home, they're spread out. And like Rashmi said, business is face-to-face. So the more you can get on video, the better for the time being.
That's great. Hey, Chris or Rashmi, can you put up the last slide, please?
Yep.
Thank you. Let's go back one.
Yeah.
So to end, next, please, Rashmi, thank you. To end, if you have a question or you would like to personally speak with us for 15 minutes, that we would give you a quick assessment of your business. You have Chris's email, which is chris@newamericamarketing.com. Direct line is 631-327-1383. We really appreciate all the attendees. We also appreciate the Queen's Chamber for hosting us and giving us the opportunity to speak with you. And we wish you and your family to be safe over the next couple of very challenging months. I will close by saying, to Chris's point, we will be in some sort of lockdown, but it doesn't mean that you can't create a strategy. And it's really a great time to be able to sit and think about, how do I expand my business? And I think we could help you with that. We do appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, New American Marketing team, for being here today, for sharing your experience and your knowledge. And I already added the information for Chris on the chat, and I added to the Facebook Live. And again, thank you. We will be sharing the information in our YouTube channel, and we will send the presentations to our email blast at the Queen's Chamber of Commerce.
Great. Thank you. Great. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.